Welsh sacred traditions a complete deep dive. The Mabinogion, Awen, Annwn, the Bards of Wales, and the living Celtic inheritance. Awen, the flowing spirit, the divine inspiration, the creative force that moves through the bard. It is a Welsh word. The concept is Welsh. The three rays of light descending, the Druid's most sacred symbol, came from Wales. And is not the Irish Otherworld. It is something older. The wild hunt rides from And. The Bards of Wales kept the tradition alive. When everywhere else the chain was broken. Personal reading series, Haligricity, June 2026, IQ Productions. Contents. Introduction, the most important Celtic nation for the Druidic tradition. Part 1, the Welsh people, identity, language, and survival. Part 2, the Welsh language as sacred inheritance. Part 3, the pre-Christian sacred world of Wales. Part 4, the Celts and the Welsh sacred landscape. Part 5, the Mabinogion, the four branches. Part 6, the first branch, Pwyll, Awen, and Annwn. Part 7, Rhiannon, the divine horse goddess. Part 8, the second branch, Branwen and the cauldron of rebirth. Part 9, the third branch, Mabinogion and the enchanted land. Part 10, Math, Gwydion, and Lugh. Part 11, Awen, king of Annwn, Awen, Gwyn ap Nudd and the wild hunt. Part 15, Gwyn ap Owen, the Eisteddfod. Part 16, the Bards of Wales, keepers of sacred memory, the living bardic ceremony. Part 19, Iola Morgandew, the Gorsedd of Bards, the modern ceremony. St. David and the Welsh sacred sites, the living landscape. Part 24, Welsh folk magic and bardic memory. Introduction. Wales Cymru in Welsh, meaning the country of fellow countrymen or the land of comrades, is a small nation of approximately 3.2 million people occupying the western peninsula of Britain. And it holds what is arguably the most important and most living Celtic sacred inheritance in the world. More important than Scotland for the Druidic tradition specifically. More textually complete than Gaul for the pre-Christian Celtic cosmology. And uniquely distinguished by something no other Celtic nation can claim. An unbroken bardic tradition that runs from the 6th century CE to the present day. The Welsh language, one of the oldest living languages in Europe, spoken by approximately 800,000 people today, is the primary carrier of this inheritance. The Welsh language sacred texts preserve pre-Christian Celtic cosmological material in literary form unavailable in any other surviving Celtic source. This is Wales's specific gift to Haligricity, a complete sacred cosmology with specific named divine beings, a specific otherworld with specific geography, and the sacred concept of Awen, the flowing divine inspiration that is the closest available ancient equivalent to what the Haligric Veressence works with. The Welsh language, sacred speech as cultural survival. Welsh is a Brythonic Celtic language descended from the common Brittonic spoken throughout most of Britain before the Anglo-Saxon migrations of the 5th to 6th centuries CE. It is one of the oldest continuously spoken languages in Europe, and arguably the language that has survived the most sustained and most deliberate colonial suppression of any European tongue. The Welsh not. Between 1847 and 1870, Welsh schoolchildren were required to wear a wooden board called the Welsh knot when caught speaking Welsh in school. The board was passed to the next child overheard speaking Welsh, and the child wearing it at the end of the day was punished. The explicit colonial policy was the elimination of the Welsh language from everyday life, and its replacement with English as the marker of education, progress, and respectability. The Welsh language and sacred knowledge. The living sacred vocabulary, the Welsh language carries specific sacred concepts that have no direct English equivalent. Awen, Hiraeth, Sinafin, C.W. Teach. The Eisteddfod, the National Eisteddfod of Wales, held annually and conducted entirely in Welsh, is simultaneously the most important cultural event in Wales and a living sacred ceremony. The competition for the bardic chair follows a specific ceremonial protocol that has been maintained for centuries. Language as resistance, the fact that Welsh survives, that 800,000 people speak it, that it is a medium of instruction in Welsh schools, that it is an official language alongside English in Wales, is the result of sustained cultural resistance across centuries of suppression. This survival is understood by Welsh people not merely as cultural preservation, but as sacred obligation. The language is the container of the tradition, and losing it would mean losing the knowledge that only Welsh can carry precisely. The Mabinogion, the four branches of Welsh mythology. The Mabinogion is the collective title for a collection of medieval Welsh mythological tales preserved in two manuscripts, the White Book of Rhydderch and the Red Book of Hergest, that themselves preserve oral material of considerably greater antiquity. The 4 branches of the Mabinogi are the primary surviving repository of pre-Christian Welsh sacred cosmology, the Welsh equivalent of the Irish mythological cycles, containing the same layer of divine beings, otherworld geography, and sacred kingship concepts, but in a distinctively Welsh form. The 4 branches, overview. The first branch, Pwyll Prince of Dyfed Pwyll, a Welsh king, accidentally offends Awen and makes amends by spending a year in Annwn in Awen's form, while Awen lives as Pwyll. Their friendship, the first documented alliance between a mortal king and the lord of the Otherworld, becomes the template for the relationship between the human and sacred worlds in Welsh cosmology. Pwyll then meets Rhiannon, who rides a magical horse that no one can overtake until she wishes it, and wins her as his wife through persistence and wisdom. The second branch, Branwen, daughter of Lear. The most tragically beautiful of the 4 branches, Branwen, a Welsh princess, is married to the King of Ireland. Through a series of affronts and misunderstandings, war breaks out between Wales and Ireland. The Welsh possess the Cauldron of Rebirth. Its presence in the narrative establishes one of the most powerful sacred objects in all Celtic mythology. The Cauldron of Rebirth is the direct ancestor of the medieval Grail legend. The third branch, Manawydan, son of Lear, after the cataclysm of the second branch, Manawydan and Pryderi find the land of Dyfed enchanted, depopulated and emptied by a magical working. The branch explores the recovery of what was lost through patience, craft, and the specific wisdom that knows when to act and when to wait. One of the most philosophically subtle of the 4 branches. The fourth branch, Math, son of Mathenwy, the most magically concentrated branch, centered on Math, his nephew Gwydion, and the tragic story of Lugh Lord Gifs, who cannot be killed under any ordinary circumstances, and whose death can only come from a specifically constructed circumstance. This branch contains some of the most sophisticated shape-shifting sequences in any mythology. Rhiannon, the divine horse goddess. Rhiannon is the most important female divine figure in Welsh mythology, a being who rides a magical white horse at a pace no ordinary horse can match, who comes from the other world, who suffers a devastating false accusation with extraordinary patience and dignity, and who is identified by scholars as a direct Welsh descendant of Epona, the Gaulish divine horse goddess worshipped across the Celtic world from Spain to the Danube. Rhiannon's sacred character. Rhiannon arrives in the human world on a white horse that walks at an apparently gentle pace but cannot be overtaken. Riders who chase her at full gallop fall further and further behind until Pwyll finally asks her to stop. The white horse of the human and otherworld is a recurring Celtic sacred symbol. Rhiannon is the otherworld itself, choosing to enter the human world for its own reasons. The false accusation, after giving birth to a son who disappears overnight, Rhiannon is falsely accused of killing and eating the child. Rather than protesting beyond a single denial, she accepts a public penance, sitting at the gate of the castle and offering to carry visitors on her back to the hall, like a horse. This patient acceptance of an unjust burden, without bitterness, without loss of essential dignity, is one of the most philosophically complex acts in any Celtic narrative. The birds of Rhiannon. Rhiannon possesses 3 sacred birds whose song can wake the dead and lull the living to sleep, a specific power of otherworld music that connects directly to the Druidic understanding of sound as a primary sacred technology. Epona connection, archaeological evidence of Epona worship, has been found from Spain to Romania. She is one of the most widely distributed divine figures in the entire Celtic world. That Rhiannon is her Welsh descendant connects the Mabinogion directly to one of the oldest layers of Celtic sacred tradition, Annwn, the Welsh Otherworld. Annwn is the Welsh Otherworld, the sacred realm that coexists with the ordinary human world, accessible through specific thresholds and at specific times, and governed by specific divine beings. It is not identical to the Irish Tir Nanog, the Norse Hell, or any other tradition's underworld. It is a specifically Welsh sacred geography with its own specific character, the character of Annwn. Annwn is simultaneously the realm of the dead, the realm of the divine, and a dimension of extraordinary beauty and abundance that parallels the ordinary world. It is not primarily a place of punishment, but a place of feasting, music, and the specific pleasures of the sacred world. The Cauldron of Annwn, which provides unlimited food and can restore the dead to life, is housed in Annwn and becomes, through the second branch, the ancestor of the Arthurian Grail. Annwn's sacred geography and beings. Awen, king of Annwn, the lord of the Welsh Otherworld, depicted not as a terrifying death god, but as a noble king, a worthy ally, and a fair sovereign. His relationship with Pwyll establishes the Welsh understanding that the ruler of the Otherworld is a potential ally of the wise human ruler, not an enemy to be feared. Gwyn ap Nud, lord of the dead and the wild hunt. In later Welsh tradition, Annwn comes to be associated with Gwyn ap Nud, a figure who gathers the souls of the dead and leads the wild hunt. The wild hunt is a terrifying procession of spirit riders and spectral hounds across the night sky, collecting the souls of the dying and the doomed. The CW and Annwn are described as white with red ears, the specific coloring of fairy animals in Welsh tradition. Their appearance in the night sky is an omen of death. The Isle of Avalon, the medieval Welsh tradition, locates Avalon as a specific otherworld island, the same sacred island to which Arthur is taken after his final battle. The apple's sacred character in Welsh tradition connects it to the otherworld's abundance and to the specific sacred knowledge that comes from the otherworld side of the boundary. Caersidy, one of Annwn's specific locations, a rotating island fortress that appears in the early poem Prido Athen attributed to the bard Taliesin, which describes Arthur's raid on Annwn to steal the cauldron of the deep. This is one of the oldest Arthurian texts and predates any connection to Christian themes. Awen, the sacred creative force, the heart of the Welsh tradition. Awen is the central sacred concept of Welsh bardic tradition, and one of the most important concepts in all of Celtic spirituality. It is simultaneously the divine inspiration that flows through the bard, the creative force that sustains the living world, the sacred breath of existence, and the specific quality of attention that makes genuine creative work different from mere technical production. What Awen actually is. Awen is not a concept that can be fully captured in a definition. It is an experience described by those who have felt it as a quality of suddenly being spoken through rather than speaking, of the poem arriving rather than being constructed, of the creative act happening at a level that includes but surpasses the ordinary conscious mind. In the Welsh bardic tradition, the specific practices of bardic training were understood as creating the conditions in which Awen could flow, but Awen itself was understood as a gift from the sacred world, not a technique. Awen in the Haligric framework. The 3 rays, the visual symbol of Awen, 3 rays of light descending from 3 points above, converging toward a central point below, is one of the most widely used symbols in contemporary Druidry, and was given its current form by Iolo Morganthugi in the late 8th century, though it draws on genuinely ancient Welsh sacred concepts. The 3 rays represent the male principle, the female principle, and the balance between them. Awen and the Verescence, Awen, the specific quality of creative force that flows through the human practitioner when they are aligned with the sacred dimension, is the closest available ancient equivalent to what the Haligric Verescence produces when spoken with full sacred intention. Both Awen and the Verescence operate through the same mechanism, the human voice, charged with sincere sacred intention and aligned with the full creative force of the practitioner's being, becomes a vehicle for sacred power that surpasses what the ordinary speaking voice can accomplish. Speaks in Awen, and the Haligric practitioner who speaks of Verescence are doing the same thing in different cultural containers. The bardic breath, the Welsh bardic practice of specific breathing before the recitation of sacred verse, the deliberate cultivation of the sacred breath that carries Awen, is the exact same technology as the Haligric pranayama practice before a Verescence. Breath is the medium of Awen. The word itself shares roots with the concept of breath in multiple Celtic languages. The Eisteddfod, the living bardic ceremony, is step by step. The Eisteddfod is the annual Welsh festival of poetry, music, and literature that has been held continuously since at least the 12th century, and arguably in some form much longer. It is simultaneously a competitive arts festival, a ceremony of cultural identity, and a living expression of the bardic tradition that preserves Wales's most ancient sacred practices in active contemporary form. The National Eisteddfod ceremony structure. The Bardic Chair Competition, the most prestigious event, poets compete for the Bardic Chair with an ode in the strict Welsh meters. The competition is judged by a panel of established poets. The chairing ceremony, step by step, step 1, the announcement. The Archdruid rises in the Gorsedd circle and calls out the bardic name of the winning poet. Step 2, the Sword of Peace. The Archdruid draws a ceremonial sword and asks the assembled Gorsedd 3 times. Is there peace? 3 times the assembly responds, peace. The sword is then sheathed, confirming that the ceremony proceeds in peace. Step 3, the procession, the winning poet, accompanied by heralds in druidic robes, is escorted to the stage in formal procession. Step 4, the coronation, the Archdruid places the ceremonial crown, while the poet is seated in the carved bardic chair, one of the most dramatic moments in Welsh cultural life, traditionally accompanied by outbursts of genuine emotion from the audience. Step 5, the floral dance. Young women in traditional Welsh costume bring flower ceremony whose pre-Christian roots and seasonal celebration are clearly visible. Step 6, the bardic proclamation. The newly chaired bard rises and speaks. Traditionally, the first words must be in Welsh. The Gorsedd of Bard ceremony. The Gorsedd is the site of the opening ceremony, a dawn ceremony conducted in white, blue, and green robes, invoking the sacred inheritance of the Welsh bardic tradition. Step 1, the call to the 4 directions. The Archdruid faces each of the 4 cardinal directions in turn, sounding a horn and declaring the opening in Welsh. Step 2, the prayer of Awen. The assembled Gorsedd members breathe together and intone 3 times the specific sacred sound that opens the bardic ceremony. Step 3, members process in a clockwise circle around the Gorsedd stones, the same directional movement used in Irish and Scottish Celtic ceremony. Step 4, the proclamation of peace, is performed. Step 5, the investiture. New members of the Gorsedd are formally admitted, receive their bardic names, and are invested with the specific coloured robe of their grade. Iolo Morgan WG, the Welsh poet, who rebuilt the Druidic tradition. Iolo Morgan WG is the most important single figure in the modern Druidic revival and arguably the most controversial figure in the history of Celtic studies. A Welsh stonemason poet, an antiquarian of extraordinary energy and learning, he claimed to have rediscovered ancient Welsh bardic manuscripts that preserved the genuine teachings of the pre-Christian Druids, manuscripts that subsequent scholarship has shown to be largely, though not entirely, his own compositions. Iolo Morganju, the paradox. What he fabricated. Many of the specific texts that Iolo presented as ancient were not ancient. The specific ceremonial forms of the Gorsedd, the specific robes, the triple sword ceremony, and many other elements that feel ancient were invented or substantially reconstructed by Iolo in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. What he preserved, Iolo was working from genuine Welsh language sources, medieval manuscripts, genuine bardic traditions, actual Old Welsh poetry. Even where he elaborated or invented, he was working from real material. Many of the concepts he transmitted are genuinely ancient, even if the specific ceremonial forms are his creation. Why it matters, the Druidic revival that Iolo sparked produced something genuine, even if its specific historical claims were not accurate. The Gorsedd of Bards of the Isle of Britain, founded by Iolo in 1792 at Primrose Hill in London, has maintained an unbroken ceremonial tradition since then. The national Eisteddfod of Wales, which Iolo's work helped shape into its modern form, is one of the most important living indigenous cultural institutions in Europe. Whether or not the specific ceremony is ancient in the way Iolo claimed, it is now genuinely traditional. 200 years of continuous practice makes something traditional regardless of its origins. The Bengali Patua parallel, Haligricity's identification of the Bengali Patua as a living example of sacred synthesis tradition, is directly applicable here. Iolo Morganji synthesized. He took real ancient material and combined it with his own creative additions to produce a living tradition. The Haligric tradition does the same. The legitimacy of a tradition does not rest entirely on its historical accuracy. It rests on its living practice, its spiritual effectiveness, and its connection to genuine sacred inheritance. The Haligricity lens, part 25. Awen, language, and bardic memory. Welsh sacred tradition offers Haligricity 3 gifts of irreplaceable precision. Awen as the most accurate single-word description, available in any tradition of what the Haligric verescence is doing, when it is spoken with full sacred intention. The Welsh language's survival as the most complete available parallel to the Haligric understanding of language as sacred container, and the bardic tradition as the most complete available ancient European model of the sacred practitioner as keeper and transmitter of living sacred knowledge through the specific medium of crafted speech. The bard and the Haligric practitioner, the Welsh bard, was not simply a poet in the modern sense of an individual expressing personal emotion through verse. The bard was a sacred specialist who memorized the entire living library of the tradition, the genealogies, the sacred narratives, the ceremonial verses, the specific incantations, and held that library in their body, available to be spoken into any occasion that required it. The bard's performance was not entertainment. It was the specific technology through which the living tradition remained living, through which the sacred knowledge remained accessible to the community, and through which the relationship between the human world and the other world was maintained. Peace? Asked times before the bardic ceremony can. The Eisteddfod begin as the Welsh understanding of what the Haligric opening of space requires, the specific confirmation that the sacred work proceeds in right relationship without the contamination of unresolved conflict. Head WH peace 3 times. Then the sword is sheathed and the Awen can flow. The Haligric practitioner who understands the Welsh tradition understands that every verescence requires the same 3-fold confirmation before it can carry its full power. The inner confirmation that the practitioner is genuinely at peace with what they are about to speak. Grand rising. 3 breaths, 3 rays. The creative force of all existence flowing through the human voice that has made itself ready to receive it. The Gorsedd invocation of Awen, Welsh Druidic tradition. The bards kept the language alive when the conquerors banned it. They kept the Mabinogion when no one was printing it. They kept Annwn navigable when the maps were taken. They kept Awen moving through the chain of teacher to student to the present day when Druidry was officially illegal. The tradition is not what survives in writing. The tradition is what survives in bodies, in the bard's memorized library, in the Mudang's possession, in the songline walker who knows the song. Wales kept the song. Grand Rising. Personal reading series Haligricity or IQ Productions or June 2026.